How to fix the Capitals.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, including the SiriusXM app and on YouTube. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. My name is Dan Holme. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. I would love to talk Capitals hockey with you one-on-one, and we can do that on subtext. Just check the show description for more details. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for more details. So in today's edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about how the Capitals fall to the Sharks. That was a game that they should not have lost. The Sharks are one of the worst teams in all of the NHL. How do the Capitals continue to keep losing games that they should win? We'll talk about that in the show a little bit later. We will talk about Alex Ovechkin, as it's safe to say that his offense has been lukewarm thus far. What can we expect from him for the rest of the season and ultimately the rest of his contract? We'll talk about that. And then a little bit later, we will talk about your comments on the Capitals versus Sharks. But just to get it going here, the last game that they played against the Sharks, that was one of the games that they should have won. Am I going to go ahead and label it a trap game? Not necessarily. I think that I don't think there was a situation. I don't think the Capitals underestimated the Sharks. I just don't think they were ready to play. And it's interesting. It just seems like they're getting shots on net. They're just not high quality shots. You know, it's just like there was a mandate to get as many shots on net as you possibly can, and good things will happen. I've heard Alan May say that before. But it's all about getting high quality shots on chance. And some of these are opportunities that they should just be layups, slam dunks, if you will, where they're net front and then they just shoot it wide, they shoot it left, they shoot it off the crossbar, they shoot it off everywhere except the back of the net. How do you fix that problem? I guess that is a very broad question, and I'm painting it with an extremely broad brush. But the problems are huge for the Capitals. You take their inaccuracy, you take their ineffectiveness on the power play, and now one of their strong suits, the penalty kill, well, that has slid as well. How do the Capitals clean this up before they take on the Kings tomorrow night? I want to see a better performance from them, because Lord knows it's not going to be any easier against the Kings. The Kings are in second place. They have a record of 13-3, while the Sharks, who are in last place in the Pacific, have a record of 5-15. So, you know, to say that they should have won that game was an underestimation. Just to take a look at the standings here in general, no, it is. The Sharks are the worst team in all of the NHL, and the Capitals found a way to lose. That is frustrating, and that's one of the things we'll talk about tonight is the frustration. The frustration for me, I'm going to talk about, as you as Capitals fans as well, is that the game didn't start for me until 9:30 local, and it didn't wrap up till early morning. So that's ultimately why this show's a little bit later, because I have to be to work at 7 o'clock in the morning. And ultimately, that's the story there. So 9 times out of 10, I'm going to do a show for you guys immediately following the games. But when it's, 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, it's going to have to wait till the next day. But I'm glad that you're along joining me as we talk about the game. I wish I had better things to talk about, that the Capitals found a way to win. One of the funny things is they started the season really poor, 1-3-1. And what is one of the things that I talked about is, the negativity snowball and how you start to project failure. I think that some of those demons are starting to seep in again, where they're getting caught up in their own heads and they're overthinking things. And then they went on a heater and they won 5 games in a row, and everyone was singing their praises, myself included. I felt like they were untouchable. They were able to win some big games on the big stage, most notably against the Golden Knights. That was a big morale boost. I know that the Golden Knights have not played as well as of late, but at the time, the Golden Knights were playing really well, and the Capitals were all the way up into second place. Went to start the season, they were near the bottom of the Metro, and now they've slid again. Since then, the Capitals dropped 2 games against the lowly Oilers and the San Jose Sharks. So those are one of the things where, you can say a loss is a loss and this and that and the other thing. But when you lose games that you should really win, the Oilers, for example, are one spot higher in the Pacific than the Sharks, and they are 7-12. And the Capitals found a way to lose that game as well. So frustration abounds for this team. They struggled to score on 2 different fronts, even strength, frustratingly, and the power play. Those are key elements. And if you're an everydayer of the show, I talk about it as much, is that they've struggled with the power play. And okay, they're winning games, so we can kind of sweep that under the rug. We don't need to talk about that. They're winning at the end of the day. But certain things are coming into focus right now, is they're losing games that they should have won. The Caps had plenty of shots. They had 34 shots on goal. That's what I'm talking about. The high danger, the accurate shots, the Tom Wilson being in front of the net and just missing his opportunity. We're not talking about a young guy here. We're not talking about some AHL call-up where they have a little bit of leeway. Tom Wilson is a guy that's been in this league for quite some time. The thing that I'm going to give him credit for is he doesn't try to write himself any excuses. He owns it. But again, I'm not trying to discredit Tom Wilson. I think that he is part of that negativity snowball where you get caught up in your own head. We've seen that with Alex Ovechkin. I'll talk about him a little bit later. That certain times you start projecting failure. It seems like the accuracy is off the puck. Even though Spencer Carberry pledges to fix the PP, it went 0 for 3 against the Sharks. And again, I don't think that that was something that was going to get fixed overnight. And I know that Spencer Carberry made that pledge just a couple of days ago, but he has talked about it ad nauseum before that, and still it struggles. It is 0 for 31 over the last 11 games. How do you fix this? Remember, this is what we talked about. Blaine Forsythe is gone. Peter Laviolette's gone. That is what's going to fix the power play. That is what is going to fix the team. As it turns out, that has not been the case thus far. I don't know what it's going to take. Is it going to take Spencer Carberry taking over the power play at some point? I ultimately don't think that's going to be the case, but it is struggling. And I'd like to think that, at some point it's going to catch on. And this will all be, something that I talked about in the rear view that I don't need to talk about anymore. And like I talked about, the inaccuracy isn't just from new players on this team. It's from the rookies. It's from the veterans. And then the only goal they got against the Sharks wasn't a convincing goal. It was a wobbly kind of bouncer by Evgeny Kuznetsov. So it was frustrating. It was a game that I stayed up late to watch. And ultimately, they didn't find a way to win. I stay up and watch the games, for that reason, hoping that it's going to be, a little bit more of a convincing win or at least a close games. But to stay up until 12:30 in the morning and your team loses, that is difficult. But like I talked about, it's not even the PP anymore. It's the PK, which for the longest time has been a strength for this team. After going 10 games with allowing a power play goal, the Caps PK has now given up 5 power play goals over the last 3 games. What is going on? What is going on? If Peter Laviolette was here right now, they would be saying, what? Get him out of here. And I don't think that they should say that Spencer Carberry needs to get out of here. I ultimately don't think it's his fault per se. I think that, his systems are simply getting implemented right now in their earliest stages. And I think at the end of the day, it's up to the players to execute those players. Am I blaming Kurt Muller for all of this either? No. But I think that it needs to get changed somehow. And, I think that it might have to come internally, like I talked about last season when the Capitals were playing really poor. I think it was in November going into December when they went on a big winning streak there as well. Is it took a team meeting. It took TJ Oshie. It took some of the big brass of the Capitals players to say, hey, Ovi, hey, you guys sit down over there. I'm going to tell you what needs to change. Or Tom Wilson or Oshie or John Carlson, some of the pillars of the team to say, sit down, we got to talk about this. Carbs has done what he's can do out there. Kirk Muller, he's done what he can do. It's up to us within this room to figure it out. And you'd be surprised the effectiveness is if you remember the Capitals went on one heck of a winning streak in the month of December last season. Can they find that fire again as we're coming up on the end of November, headed towards December? Do they need to have a come to Jesus meeting in the locker room, closed doors, press stay out? It's none of your business. We're going to figure it out here amongst men, amongst players. We're going to figure it out because why? We got the pedigree. We got the experience. We've been there. We've done that. And we have Stanley Cup rings that aren't that tarnished. They're only from 2018. Let's get it done. I don't want to be talking about how this team is sliding down the rankings. I was talking about before the Thanksgiving break how good things are going, how great they're going. And a good measuring stick for a team is how they are at the Thanksgiving break and yada, yada, yada. Again, they're going to need to find themselves again if they want to be competitive. I don't want to talk about, how this team is struggling and how it needs to get better on a nightly basis. It's just something that needs to change. And I think it's going to take the players within the locker room to figure it out. Darcy Kemper, all things considered, I know oftentimes it's easy to blame the goalie. The goalie sucks. He stopped 21 of 23 and had a rather great game, all things considered. It's good for a .913 save percentage. There's far worse around the league. Again, the defense. And the thing that worries me the most about all of this, to wrap up this segment here, is the defense. This is the defense as it was sketched out in the preseason, now that Martin Fehervary's back, and still they struggle. This is how it was sketched out. The Capitals almost had better, production out of having these Hardy Hamann, Octel, Alexiev, Lucas Johansson. And I understand it's only been one game since it's the whole defensive band back together, but they're going to need more from the defense as well. Darcy Kemper, Charlie Lindgren, Hunter Shepard, whoever, they can't win the games exclusively for the Capitals. The defense has got to step up. There's pillars on that defense. You take a look at John Carlson. You take a look at Rasmus Sandin, Van Riemsdyk, Jensen. There are some big name players, not to mention Joel Edmondson. It's a great group. I'm not here to discredit them. They just need to get engaged. I know they have what it takes within the locker room to get it done. They just have got to figure it out. All right, so coming up here after the break, we will talk about the lukewarm offense from Alex Ovechkin thus far. I know he's got his contributions out there, but he's behind the 8 ball when it comes to scoring goals. What needs to change, and ultimately, does he have what it takes to catch the great one, Wayne Gretzky? I'll talk about that coming up. A new NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities. Alex Ovechkin could score 50 goals. The Capitals could hoist the Stanley Cup, and you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our #1 choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. And let me tell you something, guys. I wasn't that into fantasy hockey before I found Sleeper. And now let me tell you something. I love it. To win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Capitals fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So if you're an everydayer of the show, you know I've talked about my concern over Alex Ovechkin thus far, is it just seems like he is not scoring on the regular basis that we've known to expect from him. I mean, you got to be honest. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, you need to take off those Capitals colored glasses and set them aside and put headphones on. This is not Alex Ovechkin from last year. This is not Alex Ovechkin from the year before. This is an Alex Ovechkin that I am concerned about. And why am I concerned? Well, ultimately, the team rises, it falls with Alex Ovechkin. It plays its best hockey when Alex Ovechkin is engaged. And, like I'm saying, it's not like he's just a total dud out there. He's, getting shots on net. He's doing some of the right things, but he is not finding the back of the net. Alex Ovechkin in particular, just so we know what we're talking about here, in the last game against the Sharks, 5 shots on goal, 22:02 of ice time. Not too bad, all things considered, but he is struggling to find the back of the net. And ultimately, does he have what it takes to catch the great one, Wayne Gretzky? And again, that is why he was frustrated. He said, I wish the press would stop asking me about when are you going to do it. What do you want me to tell you? I'm going to catch him when I can catch him. Please stop talking to me about it. What I'm worrying about right now is helping the Caps win hockey games. That is the right attitude. I wish people would stop asking him about him, because I think that he's so stuck in his mind right now that that's all he's thinking about. Alex, why can't you score? What's the matter with you? And it's difficult, and he puts on a strong face. But let's take a look at the projections before the season. This was on Google Goal Tracker here. So many great analytics out there. But taking a look at Alex Ovechkin, he was projected to pass Wayne Gretzky in the 24-25 season. Career goals 827, goals until 68. Projected goals for this season so far, for this season, the 22 that was the last season. The projected goals for this season is 22, and he has 5 goals thus far. That's a bit worrisome for me. 5. I mean, if you take a look at the season before, how many goals did he have? He had 42. Before that, 50. Then, there was a dip in 2020, of course. There was COVID and shortened seasons and all that. 48, 51, 49. But we take a look at it right now. He has 5 goals. That is cause for concern for me, as he's gone on a great clip historically in his career. Ultimately, what is behind it? I mean, let's just take, the wheels and take the face off the clock and look and see what is going wrong here. The Alex Ovechkin had the best chance of kind of redeeming himself and catching fire against the Sharks. That would have been a great place to start. They have the league's worst defense and a bottom 5 penalty kill. Great opportunity. What is one of the things that I think is difficult for Alex Ovechkin is finding consistency at his center. He's playing the top line, left wing. Who is his center? For years, for eons, it was Nick Backstrom, and no one did it better than Nick Backstrom in his heyday. But we know he stepped away from hockey, probably never going to play hockey, and didn't really play a whole lot with Ovechkin these last few years. But so what have they done? They've cycled through Strome. They've cycled through Kuznetsov, trying desperately to get, Alex Ovechkin off the schneid. And I think that once they start coming, once he has his first multi-goal game, then it's going to be a weight off his shoulders, because right now I think it's weighing heavy on him right now. Again, the last game, he got plenty of shots on net with 5 goals in 18 games. Ovechkin is projected to score just 23 goals. Okay, that's a different page. 23, some people say 22. That ballpark, that's where he's at. He was, but when was he projected before the season started to catch Wayne Gretzky? What was everyone's thought? The 24-25 season. Well, it has been adjusted now to the 26-27 season. And that's it's going to be 49 shy of Gretzky at the end of his season end here. At that pace, it would be on his next contract. So that's what's a bit worrisome is he going to be able to catch Wayne Gretzky by the end of his current contract, or is he going to need an extension of some sort to catch the great one? And, I think that for the longest time, we took for granted that he is going to knock him out on a consistent basis. And historically, he has done that. Again, 42, 50, 24, 48, 51, 49. The high water mark was in 2007 where he had 65 goals, which is, unattainable. And, the thing of it is, it's not like you've seen a gradual decrease. I mean, quite the contrary. It's been, for the most part, up there the whole way. What is going on this particular season? Is there an underlying injury? That's one of my things that I'm, my conspiratorial mind that will find out that, maybe he has something wrong. I know that he's gone through various different equipments, various different sticks to no avail. What is ultimately the root cause? I think we need to send someone undercover there. Ovechkin has scored on only one of his 38 shots during 5-on-5 play. Ovechkin has scored 1 goal on 26 shots on the power play. And that is one of the things that I think is going to need to get fixed on this team, is to get Alex Ovechkin where he needs to be. The projections are already getting pushed out. We had him pegged at catching Wayne Gretzky by the end of his contract. As it turns out right now, if he continues on this current trend, it's probably not going to happen. And that's a bit worrisome. And to just kind of walk through life with blind faith, like hear no evil, see no evil, I'm not that naive. And I'm not going to say that he's not going to catch Gretzky, so I don't want to hear about that. But what I'm saying is that what is behind his slow start thus far? That's what's a bit concerning for me, because historically, and if you're a longtime Capitals fan, generally speaking, he has always been lights out, scoring on demand. That is what is worrisome for me, and something that I think that needs to get addressed, to be honest with you. All right, so coming up here after the break, I will read your comments. What do you think what went wrong with the Capitals versus the Sharks? Was there anything that went right? I'll talk about that coming up. If you run a solo small business, you're an army of one, but you still need a CPA, bookkeeper, separate payroll solution, and more. Let Collective take care of the paperwork while you take care of business. Collective is the #1 financial solution for freelancers, contractors, and self-employed entrepreneurs that lets you focus on your passion, not your paperwork. Let Collective handle all of your paperwork you dread, like corporate formation and compliance, taxes, bookkeeping, accounting, and even payroll. The best part, it's at a fraction of the cost of a CPA. Collective knows that if your business of one makes over $80,000 a year, you will find the most value from their service. Join the thousands of solopreneurs who have saved an average of $10,000 per year on taxes with their structure. Right now, Collective is offering a 1-month free and no onboarding fee when you go to collective.com/LockedOnNHL and tell them Locked On NHL sent you. That's a $550 value for free when you go to collective.com/LockedOnNHL and tell them Locked On NHL sent you. That's collective.com/LockedOnNHL and tell them Locked On NHL sent you. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And one of the things that I'm lucky for is I have great listeners, I have great viewers, and we're very interactive. If it's not on subtext, I talk to people on YouTube, I talk to people on Twitter, and there are some smart hockey minds out there, some smart Capital hockey minds, and I love to hear from you. So if you get an opportunity, hit me up on subtext. You'll find more information in the show description. You can do it on YouTube. You can do it on Twitter, and let me know your thoughts. How do you fix what's ailing this team? How do the Capitals fix the power play, the PK? How do you get Alex Ovechkin to score more goals? How do they get it done? Well, let's hear from a couple viewers. This is from Billy Elrod 1779. He said, I thought the PP looked much better. A few times they fell back into the habit of standing around, but in general, it looked better. By my counts, we should have been up 3-1 into the second period. I know we're not where we want to be, but the team itself is not as bad as I was projecting early on. I'm hopeful. And I think at the end of the day, that's all you can be is hopeful. Hopefully, they can find a way to turn it around. The difficult question, and that's a positive thought, and that's positive that they're showing signs of progress. They weren't standing around. I get that. Real progress for me is if they found the back of the net. And Billy, I appreciate your comments there. I do think that it looked like they were getting in better formation, but they need to do the big thing is to score when they are on the man advantage. How do they get that done? Again, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Hit me up on subtext, Twitter, or YouTube, and let me know, how do the Capitals figure out to get the PK, the PP, and guys engaged? Because as it stands right now, it just does not appear that everyone is engaged. How do they go on a 5-game winning streak after going 1-3-1? Let's get back to that hockey. They have a good measuring stick as they are taking on the Sharks next. And it's going to be interesting. It is not going to be an easy schedule as they are on the West Coast. They're taking on the Ducks, the Golden Knights, the Coyotes. And the Coyotes, who are generally a deplorable team, are actually 9-2. That is not too bad of hockey for the Coyotes, all things considered. I'd be pretty excited if I was a Coyotes fan with that kind of record. The Golden Knights 14-5, the Ducks 9-12, who have taken a bit of a fall from grace, started the season with such promise. But still, again, so you saw how the Capitals struggled with the Sharks. You saw how they struggled with the Oilers. And of course, the next one tomorrow, 9:30 p.m. local for me, 10:30 if you're on the East Coast, is the Kings 13-3. This is the time to make it right, to show me that this team is better. To show me that the PP, the PK, that the guys can score from the front of the net. Seeing is believing for me. That is what it's all about. I'm not a huge analytics guy. I'm all about the eye test. That's what I want to see. The next one here is from Javi Ronaldo 0. Doesn't help that the officials seem to have it out against the Capitals. Just as we were building momentum to get that game-winning goal, they gave San Jose a penalty that wasn't one. Not only killed our momentum, but San Jose scored on it as well. Again, he's talking about the officiating. I don't usually like to go down that rabbit hole just because I think that is a team that's flailing and it's trying to make excuses. I run into that all the time at work, where you're talking about your favorite football team and they're saying, well, they would have won, but the officials sucked. Okay, maybe a little bit, but I hate when there's excuses like that. But to be fair, I'm not saying that he's wrong here. If you take a look at the game against Edmonton in particular, it did appear that the refs were a little bit off, that they were maybe trying to help the Oilers out a little bit because they are much worse than anyone expected. Again, I don't want to go down that road because I think it's ultimately cutting excuses for your team. The Capitals know, the players know, Tom Wilson, Ovechkin, all of them have said, we're not where we need to be. They're just not exactly sure how to get it in the right direction. That is the question, and something that is going to need to be addressed so this team doesn't continue to spiral here. Again, I don't want to make it sound like, they're on this tremendous losing streak and all hope is lost here. But when you lose 2 games against teams that you should have won, that is distressing for me. They lost 2 in a row after winning 5 in a row. They're going to have to find a way to turn it around as it stands. Right now, the Caps are in 4th place in the Metro. The Flyers, the Hurricanes, and Rangers, not too long ago, just before the Thanksgiving break, they were in 2nd place. You can see how quickly you can slide down the standings if you don't make things right in a hurry. Listen, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering your Washington Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and are watching this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful, and I have you to thank. But when you're done here, head on over to Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Check it out. It is really good. Locked On continues to grow. So take advantage of that and just, be well versed when it comes to all sports. Locked On makes it easy. Listen, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.